On January 27th, President Trump signed an executive order. And what that order did was it banned admission into the United States for anybody who is a national of one of 7 countries: Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. That order, at least at first, applied to anybody who was a citizen of those countries, including if they have a green card here in the United States and have lived here for 25 years. So chaos ensued at the airports, and lawsuits were immediately filed all over the country, including one here in the Eastern District of Michigan. One of those lawsuits was filed in Seattle by the state of Washington. And the judge, the federal district judge in Seattle, immediately shut down the order. So the executive order. So what he did was he put a pause on the implementation of the executive order while the federal courts could decide whether or not the order was unconstitutional. What he said was that the order probably was not constitutional, and therefore, while he was figuring out all of the details and hearing evidence and argument, the order would be held in abeyance. The Trump administration appealed, and yesterday, the Ninth Circuit agreed with the trial court judge and said, yep, that's right. While this adjudication is going on, the order is going to be paused. So the result of that has been that travelers from those 7 countries can continue to gain admission. The Ninth Circuit said is while the courts are figuring out if that executive order is lawful, we're not going to let it take effect. And so nationwide, the Trump executive order is being held in abeyance while the federal courts figure out if it's constitutional. I should say also it's not only about travel, it's also about the refugee program. The executive order put a pause on the refugee program, admission of all refugees for 120 days. And that piece of it, too, is being held in abeyance, which means that the refugees who were already approved, entirely vetted, totally set, ready to come here, they're going to be able to come here until the courts have time to really look at the constitutionality of the executive order. The really outrageous thing about what the Trump administration said to the Federal Court of Appeals in the Ninth Circuit is that they tried to say that the executive order was completely unreviewable by the courts, that federal courts have no business examining the actions of the president to see if they're constitutional or not. And that because the president uttered the words national security as the justification for the order, that means that its constitutionality is beyond question. And the Ninth Circuit rejected that really emphatically. They said, no, that isn't right, that can't be right. If the president does something unconstitutional, it's the job of the courts to rein that in. And so although they haven't yet said that the executive order itself is definitively unconstitutional, they have definitively said that the Trump administration's effort to take presidential action and push it entirely outside the scope of federal courts is just completely lawless and can't be sustained. And so that's the part of the opinion that was the most definitive. The part of the opinion that's not definitive is the executive order itself constitutional or unconstitutional? On that, the Ninth Circuit rendered just a provisional opinion and said that's going to need to be adjudicated further. And so we're going to see this play out over the next 2 weeks to a month.